I'm on the call now with Seth. He's in too, so I'm gonna wait to see if I see any reps.
I'll be
So
on in 2 minutes.
Felicia and who's helping you?
Sonia and Justin are doing it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Fantastic. And yourself?
Getting old, but good.
You look good.
Good. Hey, Justin, how are you?
Good, Jorge. Still looking good though, sir.
Still looking good. How are you guys? Sonia, how are you?
Good, good. How are you, Jorge? How are you feeling?
A little better. Tomorrow I have my second procedure, so I'll be out for a few days.
Okay.
Hopefully, I'll be back to normal pretty soon.
Jorge, you lost weight?
No, I don't think so.
You look like you have. No?
Yeah, I'm eating like a pig, but
Yeah.
How come no one ever says that to me? How come no one ever tells me I look like I lost weight? How come it's always Jorge, never me?
Because I haven't seen you in such a long time.
There we go. Okay. Good cover. Good save. You must
no,
be a
that's
salesman.
what she's trying to
Must
say.
be
This is the
saleswoman.
first time he's seeing you with the tie and with the hair comb.
Yep.
You have
Yep.
your hair-
Looking nice, Justin. You're looking good.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I knew you were going to be here, Sonia, so I got extra dressed up for you.
Aw, you're so sweet.
Hey, do we got a second to quickly check this slideshow, make sure it's working right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sonia and Justin, they're going to be asking the questions and doing the introduction and all that.
Yes.
No, that is not it. Okay. I'm glad we checked because something's not right here. What is it? First of all, let's get over to the right screen. That's probably.
Sonia, how's that? Your client with the embassy and the Mexican embassy, the Mexican. What's her
I
name?
saw her today, Elizabeth. She's good. I saw the whole thing, Jorge. I actually, yeah, I saw it. She's doing good.
Good. Justin, I'm jealous of your $2.2 million orders. I opened a refi yesterday for 63,000 and you opened one for $2.2 million or 2.5. That's not right.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, can you see my slideshow?
We can see it now. Perfect,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And you don't see the notes, correct?
No, sir.
Okay, great. All right. Well, then I am ready. Let me go out of that.
We're gonna start in 3 minutes. I'm gonna allow everybody to enter the room. Then we're gonna wait 5 minutes. We always start at 1:05.
You got it. I am ready.
I wake up and I told my wife that today's 40 years of marriage for me. Today's
Oh my gosh.
anniversary. 40
Really?
years. And she goes, wait, we only have 20 years. I say, yeah, 40 years with 5 different ones. So
Ay, Jorge.
Make her feel special, man.
today's 20 years with her. I said, don't be jealous. 4 total, there was 20 years. You all alone, 20 years. So be happy.
I guess you like to be married, huh, Jorge?
Oh, I love to be married, but
That's
I'm love to be.
40 years is a long time.
I love to be married to my wife, to this one, more than ever.
Good.
I think he
Good.
likes the honeymoon more than anything. He just does it for the honeymoons.
Yes, I think so.
And then I joked to my wife. I said, look, I went from a dentist to a nurse supervisor to a doctor to a neurologist, neurosurgeon. So I went from plus to minus. And she got pissed.
Not nice, Jorge. To minus, I would be upset too.
Cost me money. All right, guys. So Tony, you have something to say?
No, we're good. Hey, Seth, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
Good.
See what the grizzly look.
It's been like this for quite some time.
Looks good.
Thanks.
Shoni,
Have a good
remind me
batch.
at the end, Daniel Carrillo I'm gonna ask Daniel Carrillo a question about the rates and all that, okay?
Daniel Carrillo, you got it. At the end of the meeting?
Yeah, at the end, I'm gonna ask him to talk a little bit about rates, what's going on in the industry.
Okay.
And don't hesitate to interrupt me at any time with any questions that you want to throw at me. I'm totally ready for that.
I'm gonna open the door in 1 minute.
Tony, do you want me to ask the questions when they go into the chat as well? Or
So usually,
I don't know how that works. I just want to make sure.
yeah, usually the question will come into the chat, and then whenever Seth kind of pauses or maybe asks if there's any questions, then go ahead and fire off the questions. Because I'm interrupting him, but I mean, let's just keep a good flow going, because just keep in mind that sometimes when he moves on to a different subject, then you go back and ask that question that was on the other subject, and it kind of throws everything
I'm gonna
off.
meet everybody, Tony.
So just kind of like, monitor that.
So my
just ask
question
the
is, do
question as it
I
comes
answer the
in.
question or does Justin?
We alternate.
Both of you guys can
got it,
both
got it.
work on
Okay,
that.
that's
Yeah.
cool. I just wasn't sure. Thank you guys for clarifying that. Justin.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, guys. Thank you for being on this Title Tuesday. We used to have Taco Tuesday. Now we have Title Tuesday. At least you don't get fat with this one. You get fat on knowledge.
I like the tie, George.
Thank you so much. Guys, we're gonna start in 5 minutes. At 1:05, we're gonna start the training. Thank you for being here. Please make sure that you type all your information, name, last name, your title rep, and your email, so you get a copy of this recording along with the presentation. At the end of the training, I'm gonna have a lender talk for a few minutes about the rates and what's going on in the industry. It's always good to know what's gonna happen with these refis, if the boom is gonna continue, if the boom is gonna stop, when they're gonna raise their rates.
Who is the lender?
His name is Daniel Carrillo.
Are they on right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do they have specific ADU kind of stuff that they can talk about, hopefully?
Danny, you have any ADU stuff that you can talk? I don't think so, right?
Not really. I was not prepared for ADU. All I can tell you is that we're not able to use the rental income from an ADU per Fannie and Freddie. That went away last year when to do Freddie and Home Possible and Home Ready. Nowadays they took it away because everything became income limit. So ever since, nobody here qualifies with $63,000 income for a property, at least in LA. That's the only way you can use rental income on any ADU if you're going Home Possible or Home Ready.
Good to know. All right, guys, we're gonna start in 3 minutes. 3 minutes, we're gonna start.
Anthony, you got the email from Mike, right?
Jorge, nice to see you today.
Sir, how are you?
Oh, rolling, rocking and rolling. You know how it is.
Good to know.
You're looking very festive in your red and white tie today.
Today is my anniversary. I'm taking my wife for lunch.
Oh, congratulations. How many years?
20 years.
20 years. Wow. That's very good. I'm impressed.
I have more than 20 years of marriages, but that's with different ones.
How many times was that before? I think you threw out a number like 22 different times. How many times?
I don't remember anymore.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, how are you?
All right, guys, 2 more minutes. We're gonna start. 2 more
Living the
minutes.
dream.
Living the dream?
Mm-hmm.
I love how you hyphenated your name for Sullivan. That's very good.
Yeah. I have a lot of names.
Yeah.
I'm trying to compete with Jorge. Go God. I mean, no, don't say that.
Em, how is Sean doing?
Living the dream. Working from the computer. All of us.
1 more minute, guys. We're gonna start 1 more minute.
Hi, Toby. Hi, everyone. You look
I'm gonna ask everybody to mute your phones, please.
okay.
Right, a few more seconds. We're gonna start. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tony, Sonia, Justin.
Hello,
Morning,
everyone.
Oh, go ahead, Sonia. I was just gonna introduce you, Sonia.
You can introduce me, Tony. That's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Introduce Sonia, Tony.
Good morning, everyone. Anthony Zamora, Pacific Coast Title. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us today. To kick off our meeting today, one of our wonderful reps from Orange County, Sonia Flores, is going to go ahead and go over ground rules, and Justin Nuri, one of our LA reps, is going to go over is actually going to introduce our guest today. So with that said, Sonia, take it away.
Thank you, Anthony. All right, guys, let's go through the ground rules. All the questions are to be entered into the chat. All the questions will be asked throughout the presentation on your behalf. Make sure your device is muted. If you have any questions and your question is not answered, you will be giving the speaker's contact info so you can contact them directly. We want to thank all of our reps from LA County, Inland Empire, Oxnard, Ventura, Orange, and San Diego for inviting your clients and being part of this Title Tuesday. If anybody would like a copy of this presentation, please enter the following to the chat: your name, your email, your phone number, and your rep. Lastly, don't forget to join us next week with our guest speaker, Christy Hayek from CAR. She will be discussing Prop 19 and its importance. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Nuri. I'm a sales rep with Pacific Coast Title here in Los Angeles and Ventura County. And I just wanted to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Seth Phillips. Seth is an experienced leader with a demonstrated history of working in the real estate industry, now specializing in ADU, accessory dwelling units in Los Angeles, and assisting first-time home buyers with down payment assistance programs and government grants. He is skilled in property development for apartments and investment properties. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Seth Phillips.
Hello. It's just so cool. We can talk to so many people in so many different places at the same time. It's just fantastic. And the production of this organization just keeps getting better and better. Kudos to you guys. Really good job. I've spoken a couple times to some of the people probably that are on board today, and I really welcome you back. The ADU world is a really exciting place to be, and I'm just thrilled to be here and be part of this with you guys right now. So my name is Seth Phillips, also known as Mr. ADU. That's silly, but it's fun. Anyway, and I'm going to walk you through a slideshow that will explain to you how you can make money, and I mean big money, by following the step-by-step instructions you received during this presentation. I'm really looking forward to sharing all this information with you today. It's a lot to talk about, and it's a lot to learn. So I'm going to offer everyone that stays till the very end a very special gift at the end that'll help you launch your ADU career. So let's get moving. Now, this entire seminar can be summed up in one sentence. That's right, one sentence. Oh, did I hit my screen share? No, I did not. Whoops. That would help, wouldn't it? Okay. All right. Okay, so as I was saying, we can sum this seminar up in one sentence. That's right, just one sentence. And that is, the shift is moving. Okay, you have the right to build 3 or more ADUs on your property, period. No planning department, no public meetings, no asking pretty please, no nothing. It's your right. Well, that's great, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't actually do something about it. So I'm going to talk to you today about, the different things that you need to do, but it's up to you to make it happen. So let's get started right now. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself first and my ADU journey and how I became Mr. ADU and my aha moment when this all took off. I'm originally from Minnesota, you betcha. And but I've lived in Los Angeles area for about 35 years now, and I've been a broker agent in LA for about 30 years now. But I went into the real estate development business about 12 years ago when the market crashed and I didn't have a job anymore as a real estate agent. So initially we were doing what a lot of people were doing at the time, which was buying properties on the courthouse steps, the foreclosures, primarily in South Los Angeles. We were buying them for 140 and reselling them for 180. So there wasn't much margin in there, but there was a lot of potential inventory. So we learned a lot about construction and flipping and doing it at scale because you had to do a lot of projects at the same time to be able to make any real money. And then as the market healed, we just started to move up into more expensive neighborhoods and more expensive projects until we got all the way to the top of that development heap. And we were doing ground up construction in the ultra luxury market in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Hollywood Hills, etc. And our most expensive house that we built and sold for over $10 million. And that was great. But as we all know, the real estate market moves in cycles. And we had now been operating at that point in time, many years in an upward moving cycle, knowing that eventually there was going to have to be a correction. So, and one of the challenges in the ultra luxury market in particular is that those projects are so complex that it's 2 years from the time you start to the time you actually just get to go on to market. And when you're a spec builder, of course, a lot can go wrong in 2 years in terms of the market. So we were starting to get nervous about that. So my partner and I at the time switched gears and we bought a property in Culver City, a more modest property, where we were just going to knock down the existing fixer house on it and build the biggest 2-story modern box on it, but something modest size that we would sell in about the $2 million range. So we bought the property for $735,000, hired the architect, and that's when I first heard about this ADU thing. It had just come out. And I was really intrigued. So I deep dived into it. And the more I looked at it, the more I researched, the more I understood, the more I came to believe that this was going to be the future of real estate. So I very fortunately was able to convince my partner to completely switch gears. So instead of knocking that house down, we instead just remodeled it, fixed it up. And in the backyard, we built the first 2-story with rooftop deck luxury ADU in the city of Los Angeles. And I'm very happy to say that that grand experiment turned out very well. We were able to sell it and make money. But during that process of building it and then having to switch hats to being the person that actually sold it, I realized that I needed to develop a whole new language to sell ADUs, because just as it was a brand new product to build, it was also a brand new product to sell. And there are some definite things about ADUs that are really important that you should be aware of as you're all professional salespeople out there selling these products. And this adds a lot of value and it adds a lot of options. Of course, the typical uses for ADUs are for rental, number one, by far, but also for elder care or for grown children or offices, all kinds of different applications that ADUs can be used for. But the bottom line is that they generate value. They increase your equity. And then, of course, if you're using them as a rental property, they deliver amazing rental returns. So it's a win-win situation in that regard, and something really excited to be involved in. So what exactly is the opportunity? Well, the original ADU laws went into effect in January 1st of 2017, and that allowed single-family homeowners to add a second living unit to their property. And second, it's separate in almost every possible way. Separate address, separate utilities, everything's separate. The only thing that you can't do separately is they can't be sold separately. It's one property with two houses on it. And the second structure is referred to as an ADU or accessory dwelling unit. And that created a fantastic opportunity, and it's been very successful. Well, it was so successful that 2 years later, the state, which was keeping track of what was going on with their new law, noticed some things that could be done to make it an even better opportunity. So they went back, and as of January 1st, 2020, new ADU laws went into effect that greatly expand the options for ADU and the opportunity. But they also put a lot of teeth into the enforcement of the law, because they had noticed that many local municipalities just didn't want ADUs because they're stuck in this NIMBYism frame of mind. And so they found ways to discourage people from building ADUs. So the state put together new laws that puts enforcement into it. And now if a local municipality is not following the state ADU laws, they can be fined up to $50,000 a day until they get their act together and enact correct laws that fall in line with the state ones. And that has really made a big, big difference, because there were a lot of cities that were resisting and putting a lot of roadblocks up. And since they passed this new law, I've been amazed at how many cities have done a 180-degree turn on them. And it went from discouraging them to actually really supporting them and encouraging their development. So it's a lot better space to work in now than it was before that recent new ADU law that went into effect. And it's just made it better and easier to do than ever before. So I'm going to walk you through a specific example, because what I'm primarily talking today about is going to be the new multifamily application. Here's some kind of highlights of the new law. In the single family world, they expanded it to where you can now add 2 ADUs to any single family property. One of those ADUs must be what's termed a junior ADU. To qualify as a junior ADU, it has to be the conversion of existing space. So this isn't for new construction. This is for converting existing space. Now that could be something that's already part of the house, like it could be a family room or a bedroom, something that is kind of like already sticks out of the side of the house, and it could be made into a separate unit. That's an easy one. But it also can be the conversion of an existing garage. So there it gets a little bit trickier, because some cities are saying it has to be an attached garage. Some cities are saying it doesn't have to be an attached garage, but that can be a junior ADU, and that's a maximum of 500 square feet. In addition to that, you can still build the new ground up new construction, or you can convert space for that as well for your second ADU. And that can be built up to 1,200 square feet per the state rules. The city can, with different ways they interpret the law, restrict that down, but they cannot restrict it to anything less than 800 square feet, period, for any reason, regardless of the size of the lot, the open space, the floor area ratios, any of that stuff. They cannot restrict it to anything less than 800 square feet. So basically, every property, provided you've got room, just physically room to build one, you can build the ADU on now, and you could potentially build 2 of them in the single family world. But the real change, and where the most amazing new opportunity is in this new multifamily part of the law. And this is a little bit more complicated, but the opportunity is immense. So under the new multifamily, any unfortunately, I can't hear you. It's breaking
Can
up.
we please mute all devices unless there is a question? Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, the any multifamily zone property, and that would include mixed zoning, mixed use zoning, any multifamily zone property can now build by right 2 new ground up ADUs. And that can either be attached or detached. You could actually convert space if you wanted to, but that's by right 2 new ADUs, and each one of those potentially can be up to 1,200 square feet. In addition to that, so on top of that, you also can add more units under the 25% rule. And this works like that. Based on your existing unit count of your property now, you can add up potentially 25% more new ADU units by converting existing non-living space. So some examples of non-living space, existing non-living space would be like a rec room or a storage room or a boiler room, any of that kind of stuff. And that's great, but that's a very limited opportunity because there's not that much of that kind of space in multifamily properties. So what puts the gold in ADU gold? This is it. That also includes converting existing garages or car parks. That's right. So you can take an existing garage, perfect example of multifamily would be tuck under parking, and you can eliminate that parking without having to replace it. You can convert that to an ADU without having to add any parking, no extra parking requirement whatsoever, provided, this is the catch to that, that your property is within 1/2 mile of any mass transit, which includes a bus stop. Now, if you look at pretty much any city, almost, I'm sure like over 80% of almost all properties are within 1/2 mile of a bus stop. That's why they invented these things. So it's a very low bar to be able to hit, to be able to qualify that. So most properties will be able to add ADUs with no extra parking requirement. And even if you do have to, you're not within 1/2 mile, you can still do it. You would just then have to supply 1 additional parking space off the street. And that does not have to be covered. It could be tandem in a driveway. There's all kinds of ways that you can satisfy that. So this opportunity works. Now getting back to the 25% rule. The cool thing about the 25% rule is there's no limit to the number of ADUs you can build. So for instance, if you've got a 100-unit apartment building, under the 25% conversion rule, you could add 25% more new ADU units plus the 2 by right ones. So you could add 27 new units to a 100-unit apartment building, and there is no limit. So the bigger the building, the more ADUs you can add. And that's fantastic. I'm just imagining what that does to the ROI of that property. But if you look at it from another perspective of just the percentage of the opportunity, it's actually the biggest percentage return you could make on the ADU opportunity in multifamily would be on a duplex. Because in a duplex, it's the same set of rules. You get to add 2 by right ones. So now your 2 unit is 4 units. In addition to that, you get to add another unit under the 25% rule because you only have 2 units. So anything from 2 to 4, you still get to add 1 more unit. So you can convert an existing garage into a unit. You can add 2 more ground up units. You started with 2. Your duplex now just became a 5-plex. Just think of what the ROI will look like on that property on the before and after picture. It's just crazy. So I'm really excited about it, and the multifamily world is exploding this right now. So I'm going to take you through an example right now of a real example that we're working on right now with one of our first multifamily clients. And this is just kind of some of the things that we look for when we're doing analyzing a property for its ADU potential. The number one first thing we look for is there room for an ADU? It's kind of obvious, but you got to start somewhere. So I'm looking at a property right now. This property is just north of downtown Los Angeles in one of those up and coming hipster areas, which this rental company specializes in. They buy real fixer properties in these kind of up and coming hipster neighborhoods, kind of redo the buildings and make them cooler and hipper and rent them at full market rent that they can get out of it. They've been very successful at it. They're now own over 80 properties, and they do the property management on them as well. So the first thing that we're going to look for is there room? And here we're utilizing one of my very favorite high-tech analyzing tools. It's called Google Maps, and which is so amazing because now you can look at any property anywhere and look at it in 3D and spin it around, look at it from the side. I mean, you can see everything that's going on without actually even being at the property. And here's a little tip for you. There's a tool built into this that most people aren't aware of that we use all the time. And that is you can measure anything in that space through this tool. So you just, when you're in Google Maps, just right click on your mouse, a little menu will pop up. One of the things, choices is measurement. You click on that, and then you can just put your cursor anywhere and then measure anything in the back. So you can see in this photo, you can see I did that. So this backyard is 45 feet deep, and it's also 45 feet wide. So we've got a nice large space in back of this existing apartment building to work with. You can kind of see in that yellow highlighted area that there is a one-story garage structure on the very back of the lot, which is a very typical scenario. And in this particular application, we're going to completely knock that down and just build two new side-by-side one-story ADU units in the backyard of this complex. And it's going to be just an amazing project. And so the first thing is what can fit. And then, of course, we're analyzing projects like anybody would with an investment property, is the timeline and the costs. And we'll get into a little bit more of that as we go along. So moving along, this is the same property, but now we're looking at the schematic of it. And you can see the floor plan. They're doing two side-by-side, 3-bedroom, 3-bath units. And this is part of the, some of the way that things are moving. The ADU is just part of a new movement of modern urbanism. And the whole concept to ADUs is based on this need that we have in California. We have an acute housing shortage. And the only way to solve a housing shortage is to build more housing. I mean, it's so simple, but easier said than done. And in cities, which is where most people choose to live, the first challenge you have with building more is that there's no vacant land to build on. It's mostly already been developed. So the only way to build more in cities, which is where people want to live, so this is where we most need new housing built, is we have to increase the density. So cities have been doing this forever. And what they usually do to increase density is they'll take some part of the city and they call upzoning it, which now allows them to build much bigger and much denser housing, bigger, taller apartment buildings with more people in them, in less space. So that's one way you do it. And that they continue to do that. But that's a whole different set of challenges that goes with that. Number one, is that then you only have specific parts of the city that have this high density. So that isn't necessarily fair. Number two, the only people that directly financially benefit from this new development are the the deep pocket developers that can afford to build these big giant structures. So that's also not very fair. The ADU is a completely different solution. It does supply more density, but it spreads it out across the entire city, which is more fair. And then also it spreads out the opportunity, because any property owner now basically has the opportunity to build an ADU and generate income from it for themselves. So that is also a much more equitable way to create density in a city. And it's really a brilliant notion, and it wasn't invented in California, but now the whole state of California has these ADU laws that encourage this kind of development. So now we're going to be looking at kind of a little bit more about the financial aspects of this from the multifamily perspective specifically. And there is a very simple rule out there that anybody can use when they're looking to analyze the potential return of a investment real estate property, and that is to utilize the 1% rule. Well, this rule has been around forever, and it couldn't be any more simple, but it's probably not very well known here because this rule doesn't apply here. Because to qualify for the 1% rule, it's pretty simple. If your monthly rent equals 1% or less of the cost of your investment, it's a home run. That basically means you have a 12% return. 1% a month, 12 months, that's a 12% return a year. But you can't buy an investment property in Los Angeles that gives you a 12% return. It just doesn't exist. And why? Because the dirt here is too expensive. You just can't manage to build something, spend the money on the construction with the cost of the land and rent it out, even with rents being as high as they are here. You have no chance of getting close to that kind of a return. So the 1% rule is simple, but it doesn't apply in Los Angeles. Or does it? Well, it does now, and that's because of ADUs. So I'm going to walk you through that. This property is a perfect example of it, and which is why I use this as the demonstrator. They're building 2 new units. Each one of these units will rent out for $3,000 a month. That is based on existing rents for 3 bedrooms in this area. This also follows another rule that, generally speaking, applies in Los Angeles area, and that is $1,000 a bedroom. So this exactly fits that. Each unit will rent for $3,000 a month. The total cost, and this is on the very high end of construction, for this unit, per unit, would be $300,000. Now, it can be done for much less than that, but I'm using this as because this is the higher end of the construction price, and it's a real price, all-in price. Not just the construction price that a contractor tells you, but the cost of the architect, the engineering, the expediter to take it through the permitting process, the cost of the permit, the cost of all the site prep, the utility work, all that stuff, and all the cost of the construction. You put all that stuff together at $300,000, that would be a very fair number. So your total cost of $300,000, it brings in $3,000 a month. That would give you an ROI, a gross ROI of 12%. That fits the rule. Now, in addition to that, besides the rental income, there is what does this do for your equity of your property? In the multifamily world, they typically look at gross multipliers as being one of the ways they set value. For this area, for a class B plus, A minus, rental property, the gross rent multiplier would be 11.5 for this area. So based on our income, each of these units will project a value of $414,000 on a cost of $300,000. So you can really see that that's a pretty substantial profit that you're generating right out of the gate of new net equity you just added to your property, along with your $3,000 a month of income that comes in. So this is just a home run any way you look at it. This is just going to create a lot of wealth for a lot of people. And now you guys are in a position to be able to help steer them in this way and apply it to properties they already have or properties that they're looking to acquire. This is where it's going to really help you as a real estate agent. It's really hard for a new multifamily investor to go into the Los Angeles market and pay the amount of money they got to pay to buy a property that's going to give them the return it's going to give them. It's just not very attractive. You really got to have belief in that long-term philosophy, because over 30 years, every property will be spectacular in their return if you hold on to it for 30 years. But when you analyze it from a short-term perspective, investing in residential income property in Los Angeles area is not that attractive right now. But now you can point out to them, they can look at that same property and then look at a property that's got the right kind of easy space to add an ADU to and go, now we're going to reanalyze this property. Now we're going to add in the income that you could get if you add ADUs to it. Suddenly that property that was a complete dog is now an amazing opportunity. And how do they know about that? Because you taught them how to analyze it and see that reality and earn a commission, hopefully in the process of doing that. So that's a little tip to me for you. So, okay, so now we've kind of like decided, all right, ADU is a good idea. So what should I build? Well, this is a complex question, but for most people, this really should be a pretty easy one to answer. If the main motivation for building an ADU is for the financial benefits of it, then this is a simple question to answer. Build the biggest thing you can build. The more bigger you build, the more square footage you build, the more rent you generate. And the bigger you build, the more square footage you build, the more value you create. So you win. The more you build, the more you generate. So build the biggest thing you can build. So that's kind of a simple rule. But of course, there's many other uses for ADUs where maybe you don't want the biggest thing you can build. Maybe you want something more modest, and that's fine. Whichever way you go, there's a ADU that will fit for the needs and the availability of a specific property that you're looking at. So our company, ADU Gold, is a ADU construction services consultancy. So we offer everything from just consulting services through all the way through turnkey construction, everything. So just depending on a client's needs, we can fit our services to fit what they want. And regardless of whether you would talk to us about building ADUs or another company, certainly this is something that I would absolutely recommend that you do talk to professionals about, because certainly, although you can do it all yourself, but do you really want to learn the mistakes by making them? I mean, this is just kind of an obvious thing, but it's true. It's a complicated process. Everything about it is complicated. The permitting process, the architectural process, the engineering, it's all complicated stuff, and you should hire some professionals to help you with that. Our company is one of the ones that you could talk to about it. So that's my pitch. But moving on. Another thing to look at when analyzing ADUs is, one of the questions I get asked all the time is, how much value does an ADU actually add to a property? And that, of course, that's probably the most important question you could ask. And it's a little tricky one to answer, because right now this is a brand new product. So there's not a lot of history to draw from. And one of the challenges in this department is that value in real estate transactions is most thought of as being something that's set by appraisers. Of course, appraisers don't set value. the only thing that sets the value of anything that's being sold is the same as it always has been and always will be. Whatever a willing buyer is willing to pay, that's the value of it. And that's established by the product and by the people that are involved in the process. But an appraiser has a job, and that is to establish value. So they've actually got a really relatively simple job in that in a typical gig, they go out, they look at a property, they draw a circle around it, a half mile. They pull up all the properties that have sold recently that are similar to the property that they're appraising within that half a mile thing. And whatever those numbers average out to, well, then that's what this one's worth. That's simple. However, with an ADU, they start that process off doing the same thing, but now they're going, there are no other ADUs that have built within a half a mile of this. So now we got a problem. Now we got a problem because now the appraiser has to think. And that unleashes all kinds of interesting challenges that can happen, because when they think, they might think about the wrong things or in the wrong way. And so the appraisals are coming in all over the board. However, getting back to our project, and you're looking at a picture of it right now, that structure in the back, 2-story with rooftop deck. When we built this property, we knew one of the things that we did have control over in the end, in the valuation department, would be to build the best product that we could build. You know, not doing anything stupid. There's no gold-plated fixtures or anything in there, but they're just all intelligent decisions, but built very well with a lot of thoughtfulness in every decision along the way. And it worked because we purchased this property for $735,000, and we spent a total of about $600,000 between redoing the front house and building that ADU and back. And we sold that property for $1,805,000. And when you look at this property, there's not much question that the majority of the value of this property is the ADU. Big surprise, the guy that bought the property, he lives in the ADU because the ADU is spectacular. So it is actually the majority of the value of that $1.8 million is the ADU itself. And we proved it by building it and selling it. In the process, we set an all-time new per square foot sales record for this area. And for you people that are familiar with Culver City area, it's a pretty expensive area. It's $800 plus a square foot. And we topped everything doing it. So you can actually get tremendous value out of building ADUs. And so I'm going to share with you right now a little kind of one of the secrets that we've learned, because we specialize in ADU. That's all we do now. You know, construction wise, we do ADUs. That's all I do 24 hours a day. And we've learned a lot of things about how to apply ADUs effectively. So here's one. You're limited to a 1,200 square foot ADU, or are you? Well, not necessarily. So there's a couple things about this particular ADU that I'll talk to you about. First, when you look at the bottom right corner there, we actually built this ADU above and to the side of the existing garage, even though that garage was basically completely torn down, which it had to be to build 2-story and build a proper structure that could support the weight of a second story. That garage is still technically, air quotes, a garage, but it's not being used as a garage. So that doesn't count towards your ADU. Now, in addition to that, if you look up on top, we built a rooftop deck. Now, a rooftop deck with an ADU is by far and away the highest returning ROI improvement that you could do to the property, period. There is nothing else better than this. And here's why. Let's start with kind of a bigger view. In Los Angeles and much of Southern California, it's basically referred to as a one-story community, which is great because we had the land to do it. We didn't have to go up. So it built one story. So if you put a rooftop deck on top of a two-story structure, you're going to have amazing views in almost all locations. So that's just a kind of a nature of where we live. We've got this opportunity now, and you can build two-story ADUs with rooftop decks. The other thing is the cost. Well, regardless, your structure has to have a roof on it anyway. So the only additional cost to a rooftop deck is you have to have a more durable roof because people are going to walk on it. You have to build stairs to get up to it. And then you have to build this 3.5-foot pony wall around the exterior so that people can't walk off the edge. That's it. That's your cost. And so in this instance, this added another 400 square feet to this property. Now, this is not technically tax assessor square footage, but I can tell you this from personal experience. When I sold this property, I was walking people through this open house every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and I formed the first ADU development meetup group, which 100 people signed up for in the first week. And I would hold those meetups every weekend as well. So I put probably over 1,000 people through this property during the selling process. And when I would meet them, I'd meet, of course, in the front house, as closest to the street. We'd go through the house. They'd love it. We'd walk outside, walk down that driveway you can see on the side. And when they get to the back of that front house, they would stop in their tracks. The reason they did is that because, believe it or not, even this two-story structure from the street, you can barely see it. That's why these ADUs are a soft impact. Even with a two-story structure, you can barely even see it's there. With a one-story, you won't be able to see it at all. So it doesn't really change the look or the dynamic of a neighborhood virtually at all. So anyway, they'd hit that spot. They'd stop in their tracks because this was that move the bus moment. This is the first moment they could actually see the ADU. They'd stop, reach in their pockets, pull out their cell phones, and just start taking pictures. It was so weird. It's like being at this like tourist stop moment. They all did it. I didn't ask them to. They just stopped and started taking pictures. They'd all say some variation of the same thing. This is an ADU? And I go, this is what an ADU can be. So we would walk through it. They'd love it. They go crazy. They'd all say similar things. Well, I live back here, and I go, me too. Of course, it's a beautiful structure. And we would end up on the rooftop deck. And when they get up there, and you realtors know this moment, you've all been there when you're walking a client through a house and all of a sudden they start living in it and they start talking about it. So they'd be up on the rooftop going, oh, we would be having dinner parties up here and my friends would come and they were living in the space. It made no difference to them whatsoever, whether that space was going to be on the tax assessor records or not. They knew that if they lived in that property, that square footage might be the most valuable square footage of the entire property. So adding a rooftop deck to an ADU is just absolutely money in the bank. And we proved it by building and selling this thing. Just a quick aside on that story. When I was doing all of the projections on this construction in advance, and I was really nervous about this because once again, I was just making it up. There was nothing to go by. I just had to believe in some kind of basic sound principles of real estate development. And of course, the rooftop deck was very important to me in my valuation. So we got about halfway through the permitting process with the city, and our expediter came back to me one day and said, Seth, they love everything about your design, but they're not going to let you do the rooftop deck. I went, whoa. So I knew how important this was. So I made an appointment to go back and meet with the plan checker, when you could actually do that, and sit down with him and ask him why. He said no. And as I suspected, although they didn't directly say this, but the reason he said no was, and this is just something that's true of bureaucrats and LADBS in particular, if you ask them if you can do something they've never been asked before, their default answer is, no, you can't do that. Why? Because that's the safest answer. They can't get any trouble for saying no. However, if they say yes, then it's the exact opposite, because then they have set a precedence. So that's why he said no. So I said, well, I was prepared for this meeting. I go, this is what I think would be the fair way to look at this objectively. If we were just going to build a new 2-story single family on this house, on this property with a rooftop deck, if you would allow us to do that, and I already knew the answer to that question, yes, they would. That's in their clear guidelines, so they would let us do that. If you would allow us to do that, then you should allow us to do it on an ADU. What could possibly be the logical difference? There is none. And he looked at me and he goes, that makes sense. I'll talk to my supervisors about it. Well, 2 days later, no turned into a yes. And in the process of doing that, we set the precedence for all the other people after us to now be able to add rooftop decks onto a 2nd-story ADU. And with all these new laws that are happening, we're back to square one again. There's so much new in the new laws, particularly in the multifamily department. It's crucially important that everybody doing an ADU project have that in mind. Go out, push the bar as far as you can, ask for more than you even think you're going to get, because you might get it. And once they say yes, then everybody else will be able to build it too. So we went out and hired a professional lobbyist to help us with this, with all of the governments that we work with now, to try to push that bar to create as much ADU opportunity as possible within these different local municipalities. And so far, we've been pretty successful with that. So that's really the brunt of my presentation. I'm sure there's some questions out there. So if you got anything out there you'd like me to address, I'm more than happy to do that. And by the way, as I told you, everybody that made it through to the end of our presentation, I've got a gift for you, and that is, in our process, if somebody wants to, work with us, the first step that we take is that you would call us up with a specific property you wanted us to talk to you about. Our first process would be to do basically what we would call a desktop review of it, and we charge $250 for that. But for everybody that's on this webinar today, any of you or your clients will do that for free. So you can call me with any property you're interested in, and I'll talk to you about it and give you an overview of how we think that fits into the ADU picture. So that's on the table right now, and I'm available for questions. So let me know.
Seth, congratulations, first of all. Question for you. I'm not sure if I missed it. You said that that property, you purchased it for $735,000 and sold it for $1.8, correct?
Correct.
What was your all-in construction cost?
$600,000 over, that's spread over both of the structures. And when we're talking about ADU construction, because that's what we're intimately involved with now, I can tell you that we have now been able to, working with all of the people that we work with now, and we've got lots of choices for you. We can get that price down to as low as $250 a square foot, and that's all in. Once again, that's the all in. That's the architectural, engineering, expediting, cost of the permit, cost of the site work, all the utility connection, and all of the construction, turnkey, $250 a foot. And that's with stick built. We also are working with prefab companies now that are operating somewhere around about the same number, actually a little bit more, but that price is starting to come down over time.
Here's a question, Seth. How do you do? My name is Gabe Carvajal. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Very good. You said during the presentation that while ADUs are here to assist in California, at least for the housing crunch, you implied these are not units per se to the property itself. If the property is zoned 100 for single family, as probably the ones you've done in the past. Can you confirm with us if once these ADUs are put on the lot on the back, are these units going to create the property as multi-property for appraisals? 2 units, 4 units, 5 units, are they going to be viewed like that, or they're just going to be seen as a single family with additional permitted structures? Can you clarify that, please?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a popular question that I get. There's not 100% clear answer on this, but in general, from a legal standpoint, there's a fairly definitive thing. A single family home with an ADU is not a duplex. It is a single family home with an accessory dwelling unit. The accessory dwelling unit is the legal term for what you added onto your property. Now, in the real world of how that applies, lenders have different ways of looking at it, but by and large, they are also looking at it as the same thing. It's not looked at as more units. It's looked at as whatever it is plus an accessory dwelling unit. Now, what they create out of that, the rules they create out of that they're all over the place. But it is a very important distinction. And if you talk to some lenders about that, they'll give you some ideas of how they look at it. But some of the popular loan programs out there, you can do like 2 to 4 units, and that's one category of lending. So if you add a unit onto a fourplex, are you still considered a fourplex, or are you now considered a fiveplex? And the answer that I'm hearing mostly is no, it's still going to looked at as a fourplex. They aren't going to technically take you out of that 2 to 4 category. But that, I'm sure, is going to be all over the board depending on the place you're doing it and the institution that you're talking to about that question.
And can I make another follow-up question real quick? And it would be that if someone would like to convert that property into more than what is there, for example, a zone 100 use, but if they wanted to make it into a 2-unit, then they possibly can by going into building and safety and trying to get a variance on that zoning. Is that a possible thing that could occur?
Well, you don't need any variance for ADU. ADU basically is a automatic variance. It, for instance, in the multifamily, that 2 by right thing, that supersedes anything. If the property is zoned for any kind of residential application, you can build 2 units on it. So the only rule is if you can fit it, you can build it, period.
Because it was very clear, if someone builds an ADU, but down the road, they like to change that property into a duplex, for example, they would have to go try to get a variance with the city. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, exactly. If you had a single family home and you wanted to create a legal duplex, that's exactly what you would have to do. You'd have to go to the city to get a variance. The odds of that are slim, and even if you can, that could take easy 1.5 years to do that process. This short circuits all of that stuff. You don't have to ask permission. You've already been given permission to do it. And that is statewide, and no city can say no to that because of that statewide law.
Thank you for your answer.
Sonia, we have a couple of questions. You want to ask Seth, please?
I do, Jorge. Give me 1 second, okay?
Well, there's one that I'm going to read from Norma Gill from Intero.
Yes.
She wants to know if you're going to get reassessed because you had an ADU.
Yeah, another good thing. And yes, there will be a reassessment of the property, but at least it's in a kinder, gentler way. And that is they look at the ADU just like they would any other construction. Like if you were going to expand your house, if you're going to add 500 square feet onto it, it's the exact same thing as if you were going to add a 500 square foot ADU. So with that in mind, your base property tax, nothing changes with it. Nothing changes about it at all. They're going to reassess your property. and they're going to give you a supplemental tax amount that goes along with that. But this is kind of a cool part. You could be talking about, let's talk, is you're in a neighborhood where houses that neighborhood are worth $500 a square foot. That's the average price per square foot of that neighborhood. Now, if you add on 100 square feet, that would increase the true value, market value of your property, $50,000. But the appraisers don't go by the true market value when they're reassessing. They're going to use as the metric the construction, the cost value of it. That's what they're going to use. So your cost value of the ADU, as I said, is going to be somewhere, just depending if you're doing a very simple garage conversion, as little as $80 a square foot, up to $250 a square foot. That's what it's going to add to your assessment for that amount of square footage, which isn't going to be a big hit. So fortunately, they don't go by the value it actually creates based on the location. They just use the actual cost as the thing that they add on for that part of it, which makes it a smaller number.
Seth, I also have a question from Gus Jacinto. He's asking, I thought every city had to approve all plans and also was under the impression that you are only able to build 50% of the detached garage size or into the attached building.
Yeah, well, they're in the original ADU law, and that it still exists. If you are going to build a attached ADU onto your existing house, then that ADU cannot exceed 50% the square footage of your existing house. But that's only when it's an attached thing. Otherwise, it doesn't apply. And that rule also applies in the multifamily if you are attaching it onto an existing house, then you are limited to a maximum of 50% of that existing structure. It doesn't apply at all to anything that is detached.
And then we also have a question from Sergio Bedoya. In the 1% rule example, what was the purchase price of the property or value before the $300,000 construction cost?
Well, in that example I was giving there, that's a separate issue. I'm just talking about that, creating that ADU, because this is the key. Actually, I'm glad you're bringing this question up. I put this in my talk. This is really a core principle. What makes the ADU gold is that you have been given the opportunity, courtesy of the government, believe it or not, did something nice for a change. You've been given the opportunity to build an income producing property on free land because you already own it. So there is no land cost involved in that formula. That's where you can't go wrong on an ADU, because all you're comparing is your construction cost to your rental income. You could build an ADU and you could screw it up every way possible. When you got to the end, it would still be a home run because there's no land cost in that formula. That's why when I was going through that particular part of the explanation, there was no land cost. It was free land that we built that ADU on. So to figure out what that ADU did, all I had to do was compare the cost of the construction versus the rental income that it brings in.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's it, right? We don't have more questions. So Seth, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Great presentation as always. I'm gonna ask Danny Carrillo real fast to give us an update on what's going on with the rates. That's key. You guys need to understand, I'm not bringing Danny so you can use Danny or Mario Torres, but these lenders, they know, they understand what's going to be the near future. So it's key for us to listen to these guys. So Danny, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on with these rates? Are going to be here forever? They're going to last?
Yeah, well, Jorge, thank you for inviting me. Sean, great presentations. I'll definitely pass on your information to a lot of people I know. So Rates, what's going on with the rates? Rates, we're being told that they're going to be going up probably March latest. So we still have a good run until the end of the year, probably the first quarter of this coming year to see the rates being low. Right now, if your clients are getting on an FHA anything above 2.75, keep an eye because the rates are actually like 2.375 to 2.5 on an FHA loan. Conventional loans, 3% down, you're looking at a rate of 2.875% rate. This is a no cost. We are a direct lender, a flat fee of $1,790. That's our flat fee. Another good news that we have, a lot of the lenders are super busy with refinances. We have always concentrated in purchase business. So I know you guys have been away from your lenders because they're not reaching out to you. Why? Because they're busy with refinances. We always concentrate on purchase business because we know that is not going away. We recently hired 9 underwriters. So our turn times are no more than 72 hours for approvals. If you're opening escrows more than 30 days, you know, the market is hot. You cannot open escrows over 30 days. Otherwise, you're competing with a lot of offers. I'm very confident that I can open a 20-day escrow and close it. And if we had to put per diem, I'll take responsibility to pay those per diem fees. So if you guys have any questions, I'm going to send my contact information on the group chat. Feel free to reach out. 18 years in experience. I have about 15 loan officers in the event that I'm busy, but I oversee my entire branch, and I'll be glad to help you. And George, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, guys. I want to show you something. It's going to be hard to see, but this is a note. This is a note from 1937. 1937. I love antiques. So I have this note here in my office. Can anybody guess what was the interest rate on 1937? And I can send you a copy of this because I don't think you're going to believe me.
12%, 20%?
18%.
No, it's not that crazy. 6%.
19. Oh,
6% on 1937. Guys, we have better rates than 1937. This is crazy. 1937, 6% rate. And I have another one right here. This is a very cool. This is from 1922. I'm always buying this stuff in these auctions. 1922. What's the rate in 1922?
11.
8%. 8%. Crazy, right? We have better rates than almost 100 years ago. Guys, please, I got a call today from an agent asking me how she can get an REO account. Let's be honest. Don't waste your time with REO accounts. REOs are not going to be here. REOs are not coming. You're not going to be able to get an REO account. That's a huge mafia, and I hope I don't have any REO brokers here. You're not going to get an REO account. To get an REO account, you need to have money because you need to do the assignments. You need to pretty much hire somebody like Seth Phillip, and you need to pay him to fix the house and all that, right? Don't waste your time thinking that there's going to be a lot of short sale, a lot of REOs. There's not. Wall Street and real estate are completely different. Wall Street, you have a stock that is worth $100 and tomorrow can drop to $1. Literally can go like this. Real estate doesn't go like that. There's enough equity on these properties. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of NODs, a lot of trustee sales, but they have equity, and that's not going to be a short sale. That's not going to be an REO. So it would be crazy for somebody to lose a house with equity, right? So don't miss our next Thursday training on pre-foreclosures. We have a training next Thursday at 1 p.m. We have our Title Tuesday, and then we have a 1 p.m. special training on pre-foreclosures. Learn how to deal with this new wave that is coming. It's going to be a huge wave of NODs and trustee sales. You guys need to understand that one. Anything else? Anybody has any questions? All right, guys, we passed 2:08. We try to keep this under 1 hour. Thank you so much for being here. Yes.
Can you please post for, Seth Phillips information for all of us?
Absolutely. I'm going to send that to you guys. And thank you for being in this call. One more antique. You know what's this? This is the MLS book. It was like that. So I love antiques.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm curious, what was the pricing of the homes back then?
Well, I have one right here. This is, I bought this. This is in Boston. This house was It was a pretty big house, almost 3,000 square feet. The price was 31,950.
Nice. I wish we had those prices. Yeah, that's good.
This is the old MLS book. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Don't miss next Tuesday and next Thursday. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Very
everybody.
much, appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Great.
Thank you, Jorge.
seeing you.
Thank you, guys.
Great seeing you.
Have fun at your anniversary lunch, Jorge.
I'm running right now. I need to go home and change. I'm taking my wife for lunch.
All right.
Thank you.
Early dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jorge, and all the title reps. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Seth.
you.
Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you to all the title reps from Pacific Coast Title, David, Justin, everybody, Sonia. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Please don't call me today.
Felicidades, Jorge.
Gracias, te agradezco mucho.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Normita. Dave, you look very familiar. Oh, he's gone. Dave looks very familiar. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Jorge.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Gracias. Bye-bye.
Bye.